I lived a life of dissipation. I squandered everything that I had. And so the next day, I got up and I went to my father's house. I went to church. And I knelt down in Mass, and I don't think I ever got up off my knees during that service. And I sat there with tears rolling down my face saying, God, I don't know what you want from me. I don't know what you have for me. I'm petrified of what you might call me to do or what you might make me be. But I give you me. I'm going to trust you just a little. Because see, deep inside I was absolutely convinced that as soon as you said yes to God, he was going to make you be like something totally different than what you wanted to be. I didn't know God very well. So I was sure, as I said my prayer of, okay, God, I'm going to give you my life, but please don't make me be a nun and move to Cambodia. Because I was petrified that he was going to immediately like pick me up and move me to another continent and make me live in dirt. And I don't like to be dirty. But what I didn't understand is that as I knelt there in that church, my father was running to me. My father was running before I could even get there. He was already running to me because he'd just been waiting. He'd been standing on the porch just waiting for Tammy to come back home. And he didn't even wait for me to get there. He ran to me. Did you hear that in the scripture? While the sun was still a long way off, the father ran to him. He wouldn't even allow the son to get to the door and give his little speech of, I'm sorry, I'm a loser, you should make me a slave. He didn't let him. He ran to him. Someone once said it shouldn't be called the prodigal son, it should be called the running father. That was my father too. He ran to me and accepted me and took the little step of faith that I made that day in church. And my life began to change. My life radically began to change. Oh, I had to make some difficult choices. Because if I really was going to follow God with everything in me, if I really was, then it meant I had to give up the things that I thought were so important. I had to give up that awesome boyfriend who wasn't so awesome in the end anyway. I had to give up the priority of saying, I have to go to all the right parties and all the right functions. It could no longer be what meant the most. It was quite an adjustment to begin to believe that what God had for me in my future, I couldn't see it, I couldn't feel it, I couldn't know it. It was like the man dangling from the rope. I dangled there, unsure. All I had done was taken one step of faith and said, God, I'm going to trust that you know what you're about, but I am frightened and worried about what that may mean. How was I to know that what God would do is set my feet onto a journey, onto a path that would be more than I could ever imagine, that would be more than I could ever hope for? I think about every boy I dated in high school and college, and they don't hold a candle to the man I married. God is amazing in what he brings to us. I think about all the dreams I had in high school and college of what I would do in my career and how I would live in Manhattan and I would have a high rise and I would be so awesome. I don't know what I'd do, but I was pretty cool living in Manhattan. God took all of my passion, all of my energy, and took it and put me on a journey I could never have imagined. He gave me careers and jobs and opportunities that I could have never imagined, beyond my wildest dreams. Joy that I couldn't have ever expected. So while I dangled there from that rope, while I dangled there in fear, wondering what the future held, he stood there holding the future. He stood there holding it, knowing that what he had for me was good. Not perfect, not by any means perfect, but that it was good. And he brought me in. And he wouldn't let me say, well, let me just be a servant. Like, let me just, how about if I just do something over here in this corner? He was like, absolutely not. This party is about you. And he celebrated my life. And he brought me to a new place. In Isaiah, it says, God says, I make all things new. He made me new. He showed me the amazing array of what I could do, of who I could be, of what he had made me to be. And he showed me his love through one little step, through taking one little step of saying, Jesus, I trust in you. And my fear of having to be a nun and move to Cambodia, I had the great privilege about 6 or 8 months later to live for 6 weeks with a group of nuns. They opened their home, they opened their convent to a group of young women to come and share life with them for 6 weeks and just experience what it was to live as a sister. And every morning we got up really early and had prayer. And every night we had prayer. And we had meals together and we shared life together. And I remember as I went to the house, I was like, well, this isn't really going to be fun. They told us, you know, we'd really like it if you didn't date while you were here. Okay. So I was kind of like, 6 weeks, when will that be over? By the time I left, 6 weeks later, I was packing my suitcase and crying. I had had the most amazing time. Those women exuded such joy in their vocation, such a love for each other and for their God, that I remember as I left saying, God, I could do that. If that's what you called me to, I could do that. It would be wonderful. And I never, ever feared whatever my vocation would be from then on. I never feared it again because I saw the beauty of what God brings to every vocation. And that is the gift of God's love for us as his people. That when we say yes to a little bit, he begins to open our eyes and open our hearts to the true meaning of his love for us. That what he has for us is beyond anything we could imagine. That it's beyond anything we could ever desire. But too often, men and women, we are like the prodigal son, taking everything that we have been given and running away and squandering it and using it for our own selfish purposes and refusing to be the witnesses of his love that he calls us to be. But there is hope, because if you read that story, as soon as you say yes to taking one step towards home, he runs to you. He doesn't hesitate. He absolutely runs to you. He longs to be in that relationship with you. He is standing on the porch waiting. And as soon as he sees you take a step to him, he runs to you. Because he wants to welcome you. He wants to welcome you home. And he doesn't have any stipulations. He doesn't say, well, you can come home if 1, 2, 3, 4. He doesn't. Did he have any stipulations in the gospel? No, he opened his arms and he ran to his son. Welcome home. You are so welcome. You are so welcome.